Peter Vincent, the great vampire killer.
Nice hearing from you, Carlos.
Growing up in the middle of nowhere, Quebec, entertainment didn't reach us all that fast, especially not on Rabbit Ears TV. Also, some might say that the 1980s didn't get there until 1992. That being said, moving to the city in 1994 and splitting time between two neighborhoods, thanks to being a child of divorce, led to access to about a half a dozen mom and pop video stores. But also, random film pickups happened a ton, and that cover for Fright Night made it an obvious choice. So, one random weekend, it came home with me. I don't even remember if it was watched in mom's basement or dad's tiny apartment, but it was watched. I must admit, I saw it in French at first and eventually in English. What about this film got my attention at the time? Well, the story, the teens not at all being perfect 90210 style, which I realize came out after but not in my watch order. The fact that it seemed to take place in any town, the very 80s-ness of it, the cast, the humor, and those special effects. That's the quick of it. The long version of the why of my love for this one starts with a few images in a Fangoria magazine and the box art. Once it was on, it was love at first watch.
You have to have faith for this to work on me, Mr. Vincent.
There's something here in the film's story, and how it's a little cheesy but isn't afraid to be, and how it makes this sort of a 80s style fanboy. I was a fan girl. I wanted to see that vampire with the rictus on the cover, and I got it. The film advertised exactly what it delivered, and I was smitten. So, the story itself is fairly simple. A teenager with an overactive imagination thinks he sees a vampire move into the empty house next door and gets all worked up about it. So much so that he turns out his possible first chance at sex. Yep, this hormonal teen is more interested in the neighbor's doings than in his cute girlfriend trying to get his attention. They argue about it, she leaves, he talks to his mom, she dismisses him. He ends up dwelling on this for a while, talking to his best friend, getting made fun of. But no matter, he is now obsessed. The cops won't help, so he decides to reach out to a television host. A sort of cross between all the vampire and monster hunters of yore and a cheap game show host. When he gets turned down, bestie man and girlfriend go back and offer cash to pretend to assist. Meanwhile, Vampire Next Door comes over and is invited in by his mother, leading to him having access to the house.
See ya. Soon.
A lot is laid out in advance here with red herrings everywhere, but it all seems to go nowhere at first, so many people forget all about it until they pop back up. A bit of a watch the neighbor goes down, then they all go for a visit, which our vampire hunter, aptly named Peter Vincent, no doubt as an homage to Peter Cushing and Vincent Price, and who dresses a lot like Sherlock Holmes, who Christopher Lee has played, of course, another homage. There, Peter Vincent proves that Mr. Dandridge, neighbor extraordinaire, is indeed simply human. But things take a turn when Vincent sees no reflection for Dandridge. He gets spooked but plays it cool, wanting to get out of it. From here, and in an effort to spoil the movie just in case, it's a fight to get him to come back, get people to believe, until Bessie Man Evil Ed is turned. Girlfriend Amy is taken, then turned into a vampire, the one from the cover art, and Charlie is left holding the bag, so to speak. He tries what he can and brings back Peter Vincent for some actual assistance. They face off with the vampire's assistant and the vamp himself. Things get sticky, gooey, gory, good. They have a final face-off in the basement. The usual tools of the trade don't seem to work, and Amy needs saving ASAP, so things get hairy for a bit. But of course, all ends well, or does it? Now, who is behind this masterpiece of silly fun? Because, let's be honest, it's not the best vampire film out there, but it may very well be the best vampire versus faux hunter and kids horror comedy out there. Thinking about that, there isn't much else in that very specific subgenre. Maybe a title or two besides this, and even that, they don't have a Peter Vincent like this movie does. So you'd expect a very experienced writing and directing team behind the script and bringing it to the screen. Well, not really. The man behind Fright Night is now quite well known and rather adored by horror fans, and possibly one of the nicest men in the industry, namely Tom Holland. No, not Spider-Man, but rather the host of Tom Holland's Terror Time podcast, the man behind Child's Play and so much more. He even acts sometimes, such as in Hatchet 2, playing the lead's uncle. Before Fright Night though, his experience was not as varied and not as well known. In terms of directing, Fright Night was his debut. It is his very first credit listed as a director on IMDb. However, the film is not his first as a writer, and he had done horror before this with The Initiation of Sarah, The Beast Within, Class of 1984, Psycho 2, Cloak and Dagger, and Scream for Help. The man knew and still knows his horror. There's a reason he's a fixture of the genre, and that resume counts for a lot. As for the cast, it was tour de force to bring in Chris Sarandon. He was an established actor already 14 years into his career. No joke here. He was a very respectable name in Hollywood, and well, this could have been a bad move. He took the part of Jerry Dandridge and made it his. He made viewers, male or female, want to see more of Dandridge. He made the character one could believe someone falling under his spell. His work here is mesmerizing in the best, creepiest ways. He clearly seemed open to horror though, as this was not his last horror film, returning to a Tom Holland set with Child's Play 3 years later. The man has 103 credits at this point and isn't afraid to take risks. Playing our teenage lead of Charlie Brewster is William Ragsdale, who had 2 whole credits before this, so he was in a position to really launch his career, or at the very least have some fun. He's still around these days with a good variety of horror films, comedies, and everything in between, so one can say it worked. By the way, Charlie Sheen auditioned for this part, and I strongly believe it would have been an entirely different film had he won the part. For the incredible mix of Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, and Christopher Lee, the part required someone who had some sort of gravitas, especially to be able to face off with Sarandon's Dandridge. So, Roddy McDowall was selected. The man has a resume that was about a mile long, and he had worked on another Tom Holland project before, Class of 1984. The man wasn't afraid of horror or special effects, and he clearly didn't mind comedy, so he was perfect. He has said in interviews that he didn't want to play the character as Vincent Price, as it wasn't in the same league. The part had originally been written for Price, so McDowall played him more like a ham-tastic actor, one not quite as solid as an actor as Price was, but also as a man who played the character so many times it became awful to him.
Charlie Brewster, I presume, Peter Vincent Vampire Killer.
Girlfriend Amy and bestie Evil Ed went to Amanda Bierce and Stephen Jeffries, both of whom were early in their careers and both still working to this day. Yes, we know Jeffries kind of disappeared for a while, but he has a project in post as we speak. The cast overall worked because of their chemistry and because they were willing to just go for it throughout the film. Bierce, Jeffries, and Sarandon saw the most in terms of getting prosthetics on themselves. The special effects here are very 1980s and basically entirely practical. The work seen on the screen costs about $1 million, which was the highest ever spent on a vampire film at that point. And one of the big reasons this film nerd right here was all about this film early on. That smile Amy gives when she first shows her fangs is something else and a great memory from the first time watching. The look of Dandridge in full vamp mode is so good. Yes, it's scary, but it's also quite surprising and stunning. This is not a cutesy vampire when he turns and wants to feed. That effects crew did amazing work, and this budding horror nerd watching for the first time fell in love. Rewatching the film recently, it holds up. Yes, some of the fashion screams 1980s, but that is a big deal to me. The film does one thing right and shows what I call the real 80s. It's not that everything is colorful, a lot of stuff is left over from the 70s. There's a lot of brown and beige in the decor and the wardrobe. Yeah, Amy wears colors and some really bright ones, and the nightclub sequence is pure mid-80s, but the real life side of things, the house Charlie lives in with his mom, his wardrobe, his car, it's not flashy, it's normal. And normal is what sells a story like this to me. The special effects being practical and clearly allowed to shine helped this film age better. Had there been more computer-generated images, it would not have aged as well. Heck, look at the remake from 2011.
What the fuck is this?
It had a huge cast and most people don't remember it. It came and went, got a sequel, and they both kind of vanished. And to me, that says a lot about the original that makes it still the top Fright Night film, better than its own sequel, which I honestly cannot remember, the remake and the remake sequel. In terms of how good it is, well, it's a ton of fun and that means a lot for this kind of film. Is it perfect? No. Does it show its age? Absolutely, but that's what part of the charm is for this film. But since it's not perfect, it has a few iffy elements here and there, and it's aged, it can't get a full 10. For those who haven't seen it, what are you waiting for? Go! Now! Rent it! Oh yeah, video stores have gone the way of Dandridge. Well, you can easily pick up a copy at your favorite online retailer. For those who prefer streaming, it's available on just about every platform that offers rentals, and those that sell digital copies. For free, sometimes it shows up here and there, but at the moment, it's only on Pluto TV. So, out of 10, how high does it rank? I'd say a solid 8 out of 10, and this girl watches a lot of 1980s films and films in general, so that is high marks.